Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Ecclesiasticus, the 10th chapter. A wise judge will instruct his people, and the government of a prudent man is well ordered. As the judge of the people is himself, so are his officers. And what manner of man the ruler of the city is, such are all they that dwell therein. Right. So if the judge is righteous, his officers will be righteous because he appoints the officers. If he is wicked, his officers will be defiled. They'll be wicked. They'll be perverse. And what manner of man the ruler of the city is, so are all they that dwell therein, because they they follow after the way of the ruler, right, for the majority of the people in the city. An unwise king destroyeth his people, but through the prudence, and how? Through his negligence, right? He doesn't look out and know how to, properly rule and govern the people. So his laws and the things that he enacts works against the people, whether he knows it or not. But through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited. See? So the wise that are in high positions, they're the ones who make the city inhabitable, right? Because they know, okay, let's not do that. Let's do this. Let's actually, legalize that, let's make this illegal, that kind of thing that makes the city flourish. Verse 4, the power of the earth is in the hand of the Lord, and in due time he will set over it one that is profitable, right? And right now, one that is unprofitable is set over in the earth, which is Esau. But the Lord is going to set up, one which is going to be Israel over the earth. And we are going to be the ones that are profitable over the earth, right? Because right now everything is dying under the hand of this devil. Verse 5, it says, in the hand of God is the prosperity of man, and upon the person of the scribe layeth he his honor, right? Reading verse 5 in the GNTD, it says, the success of that person is in the Lord's hands. The Lord is the source of the honor given to any official. As it says here, scribe. Verse 6, bear not hatred to thy neighbor for every wrong, and do nothing at all by injurious practices, right? So don't, just because they do, they may do something wrong here and there, but don't get mad at them. Don't hate them for every single thing they do. That's not right, because you're not perfect either, right? And do nothing at all by injurious practices. Okay, that's something to cause their hurt or their injury, because that might come back against you. Pride is hateful before both God and man, and by both doth one commit iniquity. And it tells you, I believe it's in the same book, not the same chapter, but in Ecclesiasticus, that pride is when man, or one departeth from his maker. So the Lord hates pride, and so do man. And as it says, by both doth one commit iniquity. See that? So you want to stay away from pride. You want to guard against that. Verse 8, because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another, right? So the rule, the dominion is translated because unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, that leads to the downfall of a kingdom, right? And remember, the Most High is who sets up one and takes down, another. So a kingdom cannot remain eternal, right? It can't keep on going if these things are happening within it. Right? And that's why, one empire comes up, then another takes it down, then another comes up, then another takes it down. But it won't be so in the kingdom, because in the kingdom of heaven, there will be no unrighteous dealings. Okay? It's going to be perfect, because we're going to be perfect. So that kingdom will not be translated to anybody else. Why is earth and ash proud? Referring to man. There is no more wicked, or there is not a more wicked thing than a covetous man. For such an one setteth his own soul to sale. That's like today, you would say they're willing to sell their own soul. And Yahushua spoke about that, right? What shall a man gain if he shall sell his soul? He gain the whole world and lose his own soul. Because while he liveth, he casteth away his bowels. Okay, and this, in other words, it's saying like a greedy person or a covetous person is willing to trade even their soul, right, for temporary wealth. And that leaves them what, spiritually empty, and just, in other words, destined for doom, because they're willing to do whatever it takes for wealth, right, for riches. And that's why the scriptures say that the love of money is the root of all evil. The physician cutteth off a long disease, right? A physician is, like your doctor, or, they just call it a doctor, or yeah, we'll call it a doctor or physician. But cutteth off a long disease. Somebody might have a long disease, a disease that's been there for a long time. But a physician, when let's say they operate and they remove it, right? They cut off maybe a certain part. The comparison here is, and he that is today a king, tomorrow shall die. And the point that's being made here is, just as a physician removes a disease that has been, for a long time, the Most High removes corrupt rulers, right? That is why it mentions and compares, he that is a king today, tomorrow shall die. So even kings, which are in one of the highest positions in society, are not permanent, right? The Lord can remove them regardless of how long they've been there. And a disease is something bad, right? So if they're a corrupt ruler, the Lord is going to take them out. Verse 11, when a man is dead, he shall inherit creeping things, beasts, and worms, right? Because that's what happens when you die, right? Your body breaks down and decomposes if you're buried. If not, there may be wild animals, that'll come and eat your corpse, like Jezebel, right? Having the dogs eat her corpse. But long story short is, your body breaks down in the earth. The beginning of pride, that's the one. That's the one I mentioned earlier. The beginning of pride is when one departeth from God, and his heart is turned away from his maker. See? Because when when you fear the Lord, you're humble, right? It's a humble spirit that comes along with fearing the Lord. Verse 13, for pride is the beginning of sin, and he that hath it shall pour out abomination. And the Lord, that's why it says, pride is hateful before God and man. And therefore the Lord brought upon them strange calamities and overthrew them utterly. For what? For their pride, because it is the beginning of sin. The Lord hath cast down the thrones of proud princes, and set up the meek in their stead, because the Lord favors the meek over the proud. The Lord hath plucked up the roots of the proud nations, that's to completely uproot them, and planted the lowly in their place. When you uproot one and you plant somebody else in that place, that's replacing. And that's what the Lord is going to do, right? Right now, the proud nations, which are in rulership, are the Edomites, and the Lord is going to completely uproot them from authority, from rulership, and he's going to plant in the stead, right, in the dominion or the rulership of the earth, those that are, what's the word that they used earlier? Profitable, okay, which are the nation of Israel. Verse 16, the Lord overthrew countries of the heathen, and destroyed them to the foundations of the earth, right? One example being Sodom and Gomorrah, right? That's just one of many examples. Or even Egypt, right? It says here, he took some of them away and destroyed them, and hath made their memorial to cease from the earth. Pride was not made for men, nor furious anger for them that are born of a woman. And that's why the scriptures caution you, when you're angry, right? Be ye angry and sin not. And better is he that is slow to anger, And as it says, pride, we just read all about pride. So really the ideal state to be in is humble. Okay, because pride, as it tells you in the book of, I believe, Proverbs, that pride goeth before a fall. They that fear the Lord are a sure seed. Right, and a sure seed is basically a generation that is are righteous, right? They're stable in the Lord. And they that love him, an honorable plant. Okay. Yeah. It says here, they that regard not the law are a dishonorable seed. They that transgress the commandments are a deceivable seed. Among brethren, he that is chief is honorable. So are they that fear the Lord in his eyes. See? So just like, let's say of a family, the eldest, the one that is chief is honored. Well, of everybody, the Lord honors those that fear him. The fear of the Lord goeth before the obtaining of authority, but roughness and pride is losing thereof. See? So when you fear the Lord, that's why, and the scriptures talk about before honor is humility. Well, fearing the Lord comes with humility. So when fearing the Lord goes before obtaining of authority. So the Lord will put you in authority if you fear him, right? But roughness and pride is the losing thereof. So you may have one that is already in authority, but if they're proud, okay, or unruly, the Lord will remove them. Whether he be rich, noble, or poor, their glory is the fear of the Lord. See, it doesn't matter what your status is. Your glory is not in your riches or your nobility, but in the fear of the Lord. It is not meet to despise the poor man that hath understanding, neither is it convenient to magnify a sinful man. See, because the understanding of a poor man, let's see, poor man, see if I can find it. I know, damn, I can't. I think Solomon mentioned it. I can't remember what chapter it was in. But let's see if we can find it here. Yeah, Ecclesiastes 9 and 15. Right, it says here, there was a little city, matter of fact, let's see. Yeah, 9 and 13. This wisdom have I seen also under the sun, and it seemed great unto me. There was a little city, and few men within it. And there came a great king against it, and besieged it, and built great bulwarks against it. Now there was found in it a poor wise man, and he by his wisdom, see, he was poor, but he was wise, and by his wisdom delivered the city. Yet no man remembered that same poor man. Then said I, wisdom is better than strength. Nevertheless, the poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are not heard. See, so going back to Sirach, it is not meet, it's not a good thing to despise the poor man that hath understanding. See, because one example here is that city was delivered by the wisdom of the wise man, not by the might of the mighty man. Okay, it says neither is it convenient to magnify a sinful man, just because you may have somebody that's rich, but they're sinful, but people will extol them because of their money, and yet they're spewing forth madness and they're pushing forth wicked things. See, because that's judging based on the outward appearance. And if it was a righteous society, the poor man, because he had wisdom and his understanding, he would be honored over a sinful man. Great men and judges and potentates shall be honored, yet is there none of them greater than he that feareth the Lord. See, so yeah, people fear and honor judges and people in high positions, but none of them are greater than him that fears the Lord. Unto the servant that is wise shall they that are free do service, and he that hath knowledge will not grudge when he is reformed. Let's read that verse 25 in the GNTD. It says, a slave who is wise will have free citizens serving him, and if they are sensible, they will not resent it. Verse 26, be not overwise in doing thy business, and boast not thyself in the time of thy distress. Right, reading that as well in the GNTD, it says, when you do your work, don't make a show of your skill. Basically, just show off. And don't try to put on a show when you are in trouble. Because eventually, if you're already in trouble and you're trying to put on a show, what's going to happen to you? You're going to end up in worse trouble. Verse 27, better is he that laboreth and aboundeth in all things than he that boasteth himself and wanteth bread. So you got some people that are, they put on an outward show, but it's here, as it says here, they wanteth bread. They're lacking, they're poor. But it's better one that's quiet and works and has an abundance because of his labor than one that's always speaking, highly of himself, and here it is, he's lacking. Verse 28, my son, glorify thy soul in meekness, and give it honor according to the dignity thereof. Reading that in the GNTD as well, it says, my child, keep your self-respect, but remain modest. Value yourself at your true worth. Verse 29, who will justify him that sinneth against his own soul? And who will honor him that dishonoreth his own life? Yeah, because you've done it to yourself. So who's going to try to justify you? The poor man is honored. It's like committing adultery, knowing very well you're committing adultery. Like, how can anybody come and honor you? And you knew it was wrong. How can anybody not honor justify you? You condemned yourself. The poor man is honored for his skill, and the rich man is honored for his riches. Yeah, if somebody's poor, but they're talented, say they can play the piano really well or sing really well, that's what they'll be honored in, right? Their skill. And the rich man, he could suck at everything, but because he has money, that's how he's going to be honored. He that is honored in poverty, how much more in riches? And he that is dishonorable in riches, how much more in poverty? If somebody's dishonorable in riches and they become poor, they're completely cooked because their only honor is their riches. But one that is already honored, even in while he's poor, how much more for when he actually has, a better means? And that brings us to the end of the book of Ecclesiasticus, the 10th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakah Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.